Hello everyone, today I'm going to teach you how to play chess. The game of chess consists of 6 different pieces. The king, queen, bishop, knight, rook, and pawn. Each piece moves in a unique way. The king can move one space in any direction. The bishop can move as far as it wants diagonally as long as there's nothing blocking its path. The rook can move as far as it wants to horizontally and vertically as long as something is not blocking its path. The queen is considered the most powerful piece in chess because it combines the powers of both the bishop and the rook. It can move as far as it can diagonally, horizontally, and vertically. The knight is an interesting piece because it moves in L-shaped moves. It can move 2 spaces and then an immediate 1 space in either direction. The knight is the only piece that can jump over other pieces. A knight can move to a space even if there is a piece blocking its path. For example, you can move 2 down, 1 over. Or 2 right, down, over, 1 up. Left. The pawn is also an interesting piece. Considered the weakest, but has many special characteristics about it. When beginning a game, all the pawns will be on the second row. A pawn can only move 1 space directly forward at a time. However, if this is the first time that this pawn is being moved, you have the option of either going 1 or 2 spaces forward. How capturing works in chess is as easy as moving your piece onto the space occupied by an opponent's piece, and then you remove that piece from the board, which is considered capturing the piece. The queen, king, bishop, knight, and rook all capture by moving their normal way onto the space of an opponent's piece and then removing it from the board. The pawn is a little different. Normally, a pawn can only move forward 1 space. When capturing, a pawn may only capture 1 space diagonally. If there is a piece directly in front of a pawn, even though normally this is how a pawn moves, it may not capture directly forward. How do you win the game of chess? Your goal is to checkmate the other opponent's king. So how do you checkmate? To checkmate a king, you have to put the other king in check where there is no way they can get out of check. That is called checkmate, and you win the game. A king is said to be in check where if on the next move a piece could capture the king. In this scenario, the white queen is right in line with the black king, and if they had another move, they could easily capture the king. If your king is in check, you must get out of check on your next move. There are 3 ways to do so. The first way is to simply move the king out of check. The second way is to move a piece in the line of the piece that is putting them in check. And the third way is to capture the piece that is putting your king in check. If you are unable to get out of check, then you lose the game, and that is considered checkmate. In this scenario here, the king cannot move anywhere because no matter where they move, this rook, this queen, or this rook is still putting them in check. There are no other pieces around the king at this moment that they are able to move into the way to prevent check, and no pieces can take the piece that is putting the king in check. Now on this 8x8 grids consisting of rows and columns, the rows are called ranks, and the vertical columns are called files. For the purpose of this video, I might refer to them as rows and columns, but just so you're aware, they're called ranks and files. How is the chessboard set up? Pawns are set up along the second rank. The black piece pawns are set up along the 7th rank. On the A file, the rook for the white pieces and the rook for the black pieces are set up behind their pawns. The B file, we place a knight. We place the bishop on the C file. The queen is placed on the D file, and the king is placed on the E file. The other bishop is placed on the F file, followed by the knight on the G file, and finally the rook on the H file. One of the mistakes I see most people mess up, whether that be here or in the movies, is definitely with the queen and the king. So you got to remember the queen is always on the D file, king is always on the E file. So on the white pieces side of the board, the queen is going to be on your left and the king is on your right. However, if we flip the table, we will notice that the files are going in an opposite direction, and so on the black pieces, the king is actually going to be on the left side and the queen is going to be on the right side. The game begins with the white pieces moving first, followed by the black pieces moving, and then the white again, and each player takes one turn moving one piece until a result is determined. A game ends with a win, loss, or draw. A win occurs when you checkmate your opponent. You lose when your opponent checkmates you. A draw occurs when it is either one of your turns, and on your turn or your opponent's turn, you have no legal moves, because any move you make will put your king into check. And you cannot legally put your king into check, therefore the game cannot continue and it ends in a draw. There are 3 special rules in chess. The first special rule is called castling. Castling involves a king and one of the rooks. A couple conditions must be true in order to castle. Both the king and the rook you're going to castle with may not have moved previously in this game. To perform a castle, you move the king 2 spaces closer to the rook and bring the rook around to the other side. This is called castle kingside, and then castling to the other side, moving 2 spaces to the left and bringing the rook around, is called castle queenside. A couple conditions must be true in order to castle. Both the king and the rook you are going to castle with may not have moved yet this game. The king may not be in check or may not move into check when castling, and additionally may not move past the square that would put him in check by moving to this square. So this square the rook is protecting, so I may not castle with that rook being right there. Both last special moves involve pawns. When there's a pawn on the 7th row and on your turn you move the pawn to the 8th row, a special occurrence happens called a promotion, where you can exchange the pawn and must exchange the pawn with a different piece that is not a pawn or a king. So if I move the pawn here to the last row, I can promote it to a bishop, a knight, a rook, or a queen. You may promote a pawn to a piece that is already on the board. For example, promoting here to another queen even though there is a queen on the board. The last special rule is called en passant, which is French for in passing. Basically, this move allows a pawn to capture a pawn as if it only moved 1 space when it actually moves 2. Let's see this in action. If this is the first time the white pawn has ever moved, it could move here. The black pawn could easily take that pawn by capturing it. Let's say the player decided to move the pawn 2 spaces forward. The other player may decide on the very next move, and only on their next move, to capture this white pawn by capturing the space right behind it. They're basically treating it as if it only went 1 space, but it actually went 2, and so that pawn is actually en passant capturing that pawn. Again, you can only do this if it's your very next move. One way to make chess fun is to add a timer. Basically, this is an extra rule where you have a set amount of time to move your pieces, and if you run out of time, you lose. This, in my opinion, is what makes boring, old-fashioned chess new and exciting and fun. Once we start the timer, the game begins. You can see that the time for the white pieces starts moving down. You move a piece with one hand, and after you're done moving it, you simply hit the timer to stop your time, which starts your opponent's time. Your opponent makes a move and then hits the timer, and the time for the other sides begins. I'm going to go ahead and try to finish out this game against myself. That's it then. So that's checkmate right there. I kind of did actually make a bad move on that one, unfortunately. But I moved the rook back here. The king is blocked by all these pawns. Here I put the king into check. King cannot move anywhere. There is no white piece that can go back and protect or capture this rook. Therefore, the black pieces win. And that is how you play chess. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video on how to play chess. I used to like chess as a kid, but I always thought it took a little bit too long. Adding a timer to chess makes it go so much quicker, so much more intense, very exciting. You can download an app on your phone or purchase one online. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I inspired you to play chess.